Hi. You've come to this event looking for the simplest possible path to living out your literary dream, how to just write your book, even if you've tried before or believe you'll never have the time. Thank you for being here, for logging in, and for wanting to add your ideas to the greater pool of human knowledge. This session is for you who have a book stuck inside you. You've been thinking about writing it, but you don't know quite how to get started. Maybe you find yourself wishing you could afford someone like me to just write it for you. Or you think dictating it might work better, but you never quite set up your computer to let you do that either. You have a lot of demands on your time. The idea of adding a new and challenging project to your schedule can seem overwhelming. You worry that your ideas aren't interesting enough, important enough, valuable enough to put to the page. You fear you don't have the credentials or the experience or the linguistic sophistication to create a book people will want to read. All of these excuses, and let's not kid around, they are all excuses, all of them, are tricks played on you by your mind in a misguided effort to protect you from the very adventure you want to take. It's all bullshit, guys. This is all the brain's irritatingly clever way of externalizing an internal block. Here's an example that's come up a bunch of times over the years. A lot of my clients have stopped themselves from trying because the publishing industry is so hard to break into. There's just no way, they say, to get a book published, so why bother? And yes, the big publishers in New York, Random House, Houghton, Mifflin Harcourt, Penguin, Hachette, and the rest, make it very difficult for new writers to get read, much less published. Even as editors complain in panel discussions and press appearances and Q&A opportunities about the dearth of good new material, they maintain strict policies excluding unsolicited manuscripts. As gatekeepers, they hire minimum wage readers or assign interns to go through slush piles. So these unqualified first-round critics often make decisions in fewer than 10 pages, returning polite form letters to writers whose work they've barely begun to skim. The trend has only gotten worse in the past decades with the consolidation of the media and publishing industry's few major contributors. Now decisions tend to be made not on the quality of the writing, but on the social media following of the author. A dedicated, creative, studied craftsman who has put a year or more into the refinement and polish of a beautiful novel will go unrewarded, while a Kardashian who has never set pen to paper may receive $1 million advance based on an Instagram fan base and a recognizable last name. So many brilliant writers abandon their beautiful projects before they've even started writing, because the systemic injustice makes it seem a futile effort. This thinking, though, really stems from an outmoded understanding of the publishing world. Back in the mid-20th century, the options were binary: sell to a publisher or self-publish. In those days, self-publishing had to be done through something called a vanity press and was looked down upon as the last resort of the failed writer. Predatory publishing houses sold writers on programs that required orders of hundreds or thousands of copies. Boxes of books to be shipped directly to the author, to languish in garages and attics, to be given as gifts to friends and relatives, to be mocked by academics and the New York literati. I grew up with this mindset myself when I was about 7 years old and first learning American history in school. My father, a published author and academic, said to me, if Ben Franklin was such a big deal, why did he have to self-publish? The world had, of course, changed dramatically in the time between Franklin's release of Poor Richard's Almanac and the mid-70s, when my father's books were hitting the shelves. Now the world has changed again. One no longer needs a vast printing press and a member of the Typesetters Union to produce a book. What was once a choice between two options has now multiplied into myriad possibilities for any book you can imagine putting to the page. So many other options exist that you really can get your book out into the world, give it a chance to find its audience, and sell copies directly to readers. The print-on-demand capacity of the computer age and the immediate delivery of e-publishing make it possible. And the ease and efficiency of online platforms, Amazon, Ingram, CreateSpace, and so on, create a direct pipeline from you, the writer who has something to say, to the billions of potential readers worldwide who can now find your work with a single keyword search. You no longer need the permission of some corporate entity to get your book into the world. Honestly, the only entity standing between you and the book release party of your wildest imaginings is you. Every one of your concerns, every single objection you find to writing your book is just a subtle, unconscious short circuit that prevents you from sitting down to the task you most want to tackle. What if the time you need to write your book can be found in your schedule without sacrificing any of your responsibilities? How would you like not only to put your thoughts to the page, but to become so clear, so comfortable with the worth of your own prose that you can unhesitantly accept speaking engagements and begin scheduling live readings and signings of your book? Wouldn't it feel terrific just to have the confidence that you are enough, you, with your level of education, your life experience, your imagination, and your commitment to self-expression? It can be incredibly frustrating to have a book stuck inside you. You think about it, you talk about it, you keep dreaming about it, but you don't write it. Eventually, everyone you know gets tired of hearing about it. You try to stop thinking about it, but still the dream persists. It becomes a secret, gnawing, troubling source of hardcover remorse and paperback regret. Eventually, you start to believe that you simply don't have it in you to write a book. It's too much. It's something only special, magically talented people can do. You have scenes fully formed, developed in such detail they feel like memory, awaiting your willingness to touch pen to paper. Or you have a complex tale of romance and loss mapped out in your head, ready to be typed up as soon as you find time. You feel as though it would be a simple matter of sitting to transcribe the manuscript in your head if you could just get really clear on all the details. Let me tell you a story. A few years ago, on a soft-serve summer night, I drove to the North Hollywood Diner to meet with a man who said he did not want to discuss his project on the phone. He did not want to put anything in an email. He only wanted to meet in person. People are weird. So I went to the North Hollywood Diner, and he sat with a cup of coffee and a burger. And he told me a story about his Uncle Frederick. Apparently, Uncle Frederick had been in France on some sort of a business trip when the Nazi occupation took place around him. This man's uncle, some sort of a middle management type from the American Midwest, had found himself trapped behind enemy lines and became a key figure in the resistance. He risked his life time and again helping Jews escape Europe, harrying the enemy. He blew up an ammunition storage facility at one point. He was doing everything he could for the war effort. The stories of his exploits had inspired this younger man, the man with whom I sat in the Edward Hopper lighting of a California evening, to pursue a life in the field of espionage and military intelligence. A few years before he called me, this man had sat at his Uncle Frederick's deathbed, listening to the stories, some for the 100th time, some for the first. He told me that on that day, on the day that Frederick died, the words that stuck with him the most were, "I wish I'd written the book." Because I'm always looking for the most impactful story possible, I asked fairly hopefully if those had been his uncle's actual last words. He shook his head. He said, no, his actual last words apparently were, "Oh crap, here we go," which is also a fairly good last line. The man had come to me because, retired from the agency for which he had worked, he finally thought he would be able to write the book he had been carrying in his head. He said that not writing his book had been literally the only regret he had ever heard his uncle express. He did not want to die with his story untold. How important is it to you that your story, your ideas reach the world? No, let me rephrase that because it's bigger than that. How important is it to the world? At Active Voice Productions, the underlying philosophy assumes that every story holds vital insight, a crucial piece of the grand puzzle that makes up the human experience. For humanity to emerge from a dark age, it will be necessary that we allow ourselves to begin casting light. It's time for you to burn bright. Your audience, your people, your tribe cannot find you until you dare to send up the flare, to put the book into the world. If you felt a growing sense of dis-ease and insipid malaise that makes even the simplest of household chores seem an impossibly onerous task, perhaps you're experiencing the strain of containing a tale that battles for escape. You would not have found your way here. You would not have clicked the links and shown up for this event. You would not be watching right now were you not endowed with a natural gift and an instinctive desire to write. Let's not pretend that you haven't had a book brewing for some time. That imagery, those characters and scenes and observations that you've been carrying around in your head have weight. They have substance. And no matter how hard you try to set them aside, they keep reproducing in your mind. Without your help or instruction, your thoughts return to them time and again, refining the details. With each new iteration, the book becomes clearer, it becomes bigger, and as a result, it becomes more intimidating as a task to take on. But the bigger it becomes, the more you put off writing, the greater the strain it puts on your psyche. The more ideas you have, the more tiring it becomes to quietly keep track of them all. Writing a book sounds time-consuming and exhausting, but it is no more exhausting than keeping the book inside. Once you begin doing it, once you begin putting it to the page, you will discover the very process to be recreational and rejuvenating. You will imagine and explore the way you did when you were a child. As the words flow from your mind to the page, you will feel the internal release of pressure. You will feel the weight lifted. Imagine for a moment that humanity has reached a tipping point. We hope our capacity for creativity and innovation can outpace our capacity for self-destruction. What if all you must do to fulfill your part in this inflection point in our species' evolution is express the ideas you have been longing to express for some time now? What if your small contribution to this great cause might be the one to pull us all back from the edge? What if your refusal might be the thing that lets us slide over? Maybe this gives you a sense of just how important we feel your book can be. We need all the stories right now, every experience that might hold some clue or some fragment of an insight that helps us drag ourselves away from this precipice. We don't just need clever, funny stories from the smart asses like me who were outsiders because we were non-athletic. We need the stories of those who felt like outsiders because all they were was athletic. We need the ones who sat at the cool kids table and those who huddled around their cigarettes and joints just off campus. We need the voices of the outsiders, the freaks, the sullen, spooky reader kids, the popular girl who thought she was a fraud and a fake and a phony. If there was a popular girl who felt she deserved every bit of the attention she got and has been walking around with an unwritten book turning in her mind, we need that one too. We are trying to save the world here, people, and none of us can do it alone. Let me ask you something. What do you imagine when you think of finishing your book? Is it the long lines of fans waiting to come in for your readings when you're on book tour? Is it signing copies for adoring strangers in bookstores or late night television appearances, sales of your intellectual property for film and television? Is it the big money of a publishing contract, or is it the lasting legacy, the knowledge that through your mortal efforts you have attained a kind of literary immortality? None of this can happen, none of it, until you complete the book. So let's talk a little bit about why that seems so difficult, has seemed so impossible to accomplish. Once we get out of school, we feel we are equipped, or at least expected to be equipped, with the tools we need for survival. We walk the world with a basic grasp of simple mathematics, reading skills, and so on. We seek out employment and then strive to perform well enough to keep our jobs without attracting the attention of easily threatened superiors or competitive colleagues. We get into the habit of pretending to know things we do not know to avoid reprimand or embarrassment. We don't even notice we're doing it. The gaps in our knowledge, rather than providing opportunity for curious exploration and self-expansion, become points of shame at first. Forgive me, when I have the lights on me, I sweat like Chris Christie putting on his socks. These gaps become points of shame instead of opportunities. They're something we hide from view. And then hidden long enough, they become blind spots. They're so invisible that we don't even recognize their presence. Here's a for instance. One of the most pervasive issues that troubles my private coaching clients. After you've worked at a job for a while, you know how much time the various aspects of the job are going to require, right? A new order takes about 10 minutes to process. A stack of new orders hits your desk. You can tell from the size of the pile about how much of your day that task will take up. But you've never written a book before. So you think about the size of that job, and all you can come up with is it's big. And you think about how long it's going to take, and the nearest estimate you have for it is for freaking ever. With no way of gauging the size of the task or the time requirement, the blind spot takes over and hides the lack of knowledge. It tells you that the task is impossible. If the task is impossible, you don't need to worry about how long it might take. Your parochial indoctrination, designed to let you function in the workplace, hides from you the very idea that information might be gathered to fill the gap and solve the problem. Once you know that most novels, most books on the fiction shelves contain between 70,000 and 150,000 words, the size of the project begins to take some vague shape. Now, utilizing the simple exercise we've created to learn your own literary output rate, how many words you put down in an hour, you can pretty easily calculate how many hours your book will take you to write. Armed with that information, you can set a realistic deadline for yourself and then figure out how many hours per day, how many hours per week you will need and are willing to devote to your project. Allow yourself to think about it for a moment, and you will realize there is no aspect of this process that cannot be learned. And there is nothing that can be learned that cannot be learned by you. How do I know that? Intractable morons don't show up to me wanting to learn how to write books. You're in the right place. I promise. Do you know proper industry standard manuscript formatting? You can learn it. How to keep track of complex storylines? Maybe a simple second document system can solve exactly that issue. How the active voice changes the tenor of a sentence and keeps both the reader and you, the writer, moving forward through a story from one page, one sentence to the next with anticipation and excitement. You'll find out. Most importantly, genuinely most importantly, do you know that it's possible to turn on the creative flow when you sit down, rather than waiting for inspiration and then getting to work? The truth is, almost everything you think you know about the creative process is a deliberately constructed mythology designed to discourage people from exploring their creative capacity and to excuse the shortcomings of those who do not complete their projects. Do you want to keep depending on information gleaned from people who wish to discourage you? Do you really want to be guided by excuses designed preemptively to allow you not to fulfill your potential? Yeah, I didn't think so. Let me just demystify 3 basic elements of this process for you right now. 1. The language in which you will be writing will be the same language in which you have been speaking your whole life. The language in which you write your book will be the same language in which you write emails and shopping lists every day. 2. The ideas you wish to put to the page are as valid, as valuable, and have been conceived in exactly the same way as all the other ideas put to the page over the past 600 or so years since the advent of the printing press. And 3, the only difference between you and the people whose books you see in bookstores and libraries is that they sat down and wrote, one sentence at a time, piling one paragraph onto another until they had a book. The process is not magical or mystical. It just seems mysterious because you haven't done it. Remove the mystery, and you'll find that writing your book becomes a task you can not only handle, but one you can enjoy. One that might just become the most fulfilling, satisfying thing you have ever done in your life. Be honest with yourself. How old were you when you first started thinking about writing a book? How old do you intend to be before you actually do it? When we break it all down, going from the blank page to the completed book requires information, support, and practice in 3 primary areas. You'll need aspects of technical information, like the word count calculations mentioned earlier, proper formatting, grammar, style, and so on. You'll need creative instruction to give you ready access to your flow state, relief from the natural anxiety of the creative process, and the tools to let you find your way through blocks, resistance, moments when inspiration fails. Perhaps most importantly, you will need to develop a writer's mindset. This means recognizing the value of your own thoughts and their worth to the world at large, but it means more than that. It means creating habits of play with language. It means training your mind to think in sentences and in scenes and in paragraphs, to toy with sound and rhythm. You don't need a graduate degree in creative writing or an uncle in the upper offices at Simon & Schuster. All you need is someone to shine enough of a light on the path ahead of you that you can take one step at a time, learning as you go, discovering your own process as the book makes its way to the page. You cannot learn your writing process through memorization or preparation. Your writing process you can only learn through the doing of the thing. Here's a cool thing about learning. I believe it was Carl Jung who said the first thing that happens when you learn something new is that you forget what it was like not to know it. As you write your book, as you learn your process and discover your own tricks and mind hacks and scheduling schemes, an interesting thing will happen. You will become, without any additional effort, a writer. Cardigan and pipe not included. Even before you've finished your book, you will see the nature of the skills sets you have begun to develop. Once you have typed "the end," you will know that you've stepped into a new role. Having written your book, you will know with absolute certainty that you can write a book, and that you have a process for doing so again. You'll realize that time spent writing is more valuable than time spent binging Amazon Prime, playing video games, or obsessing over the news. You'll realize that you have begun to see how much more valuable that time is. Here's something nobody has ever told you. No matter how much television you watch, you will never be good at it enough to make a living. In fact, if you take nothing else away from today's training, I hope you'll take this. And I hope you'll take it to heart. In your impulse to write, the impulse that brought you here today and has kept you watching, you have found the potential to pursue a craft that will serve you for as long as you wish to indulge it. If you have one book in you, it's quite likely you have a second, a third, perhaps a career's worth. Once you know how to write a book, you cannot unlearn that. You cannot unknow your own capacity for successful, expressive creativity. For so many of my clients, the first book turns out to be the one that leads to the second and the third. A civil engineer on the East Coast nearing retirement age contacted me about a series of STEM books. That's science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. These STEM books for kids he wanted to do. His grandson had begun to show an interest in his work, and he had begun going on engineering exploration excursions with the kid. The kid calls him Grand Dude. His idea was to create a proof of concept first book to be called Hey Grand Dude, Where Does the Water Go?, in which he and his grandson explore the path water takes after it disappears down the drain. That was a little over a year ago. Now the first 4 books in the Hey Grand Dude series are fully written. The first 2 are in the final stages of design, the first about to be released. Not only has this man, now in his 60s, strengthened his relationship with his grandson, he's also started a journey that may lead him into a new career. It's not too late. You're not too old. This is the time. Every day I hear from aspiring writers that they have tried to write their books. They've gotten 10 pages or 20 pages or 150 pages in, and then they've dropped the projects, left them to languish in unopened computer files or stacks of notebooks on the top shelf behind the shoe boxes where loved ones are unlikely to discover them and ask questions. Like smokers who have tried to quit, failed, and have now given up on themselves, they carry a level of shame, of secret embarrassment. They blame themselves. I assure you, it is not your fault that you have not written the book. It does not lay bare some character flaw or innate inadequacy on your part. Take a moment, just a moment, to examine the structure and the unconscious indoctrination of the society in which we all grew up. You'll realize it's something of a miracle that any one of us ever fully executes a truly excellent creative endeavor. Our public school system, since the 1930s, has pretended to aim at a progressive education toward helping each kid reach his or her full potential. But for all practical purposes, they have served to train kids toward conformity, compliance, the endurance of an eternally unsatisfying life in the service or manufacturing sectors. The most creative, those who stand out for their independent thinking and their unexpected classroom contributions, get shut down, quieted, told to behave. I once had a teacher get furious with me for asking questions whose answers did not show up in the teacher's edition of our social studies book. I asked a difficult question, pushed for a real answer, and the teacher, frustrated, said, "Don't get smart with me, young man." I almost instantly replied, "Well, there's very little chance of that." I got a solid laugh from the rest of the class and was immediately sent to the principal's office. It wasn't until much later that I realized just how wrong-headed it was that I should be punished for what I had done. Years after that, I realized that my reply, when I was 9 years old, was a wholly valid form of joke writing, transposing the literal meaning for the figurative. But a 9-year-old had been witty at the expense of the teacher. I had embarrassed her with the laughter of a classroom full of children. I, in my own small way, had challenged an extant power structure. That behavior had to be discouraged through punishment, through banishment from the classroom. I was ushered down the hall post haste, the urgent part of this nutritious breakfast. How many times were all of us told to get our heads out of the clouds, stop thinking so much, grow up, at your age, stop being such a child, stop daydreaming. Stop daydreaming? If Nikola Tesla had not daydreamed, we would not have the use of electricity that can be transmitted across the nation. If J.K. Rowling had never daydreamed, we wouldn't have Harry Potter. If they had not daydreamed, we would not know the names Herman Melville, William Faulkner, J.R.R. Tolkien, William Shakespeare. From the very first time you were asked what you wanted to be, rather than what you wanted to do, you have been told implicitly and explicitly that your primary task is to find an extant role and fill it. To be a doctor, if you say that's what you want to be, brings up images of a person in a lab coat with a stethoscope, and people will encourage that ambition. Say you want to heal people, though. An image that brings up thoughts of action to be taken, human compassion. And because of our training, people will accuse you of having a messiah complex. To want to be a doctor is a fine aspiration. To want to heal people, that sounds a bit self-important, doesn't it? Yet, really, which is the nobler goal? Sure, fantasize about being a writer, whatever that looks like to you, the distracted look that makes you inscrutably enigmatic, the tweedy jacket with the patches on the elbows, the obsequious fans, the children or grandchildren taking your book with them to show and tell, reading it long after you are gone and hearing your voice in their heads once more. But to bring that fantasy into the world requires only one thing. You have to write. You don't need the pipe. You need the pen. When we say, I want to be a writer, people are full of advice about how to break in, who to talk to, how to do it. When we say, I'm going to write a book, they snort dismissively, shrug their shoulders, and say, yeah, good luck with that. Being a writer, wearing the clothes and claiming the title, sure, that's unthreatening, but writing a book? Arrogant. Before I found my way as a writer, I had a great many day jobs. Almost every one of them began with someone telling me that if I just kept my head down and did my work, I'd be fine. Keep your head down, don't get noticed. Does that sound to you like the path to the meaningful and fulfilling life you crave? But the idea that this is how we get along in the world is so deeply ingrained that generation after generation passes this advice on as though it is sage, as though it even makes the barest amount of sense. Yes, people will tell you that you cannot change the world. If you take their word for it, they will be correct. They'll tell you this because once they tried to change the world and they found it difficult and they decided it was impossible. Because that was easier than trying again in a new way, than learning new skills, than staring into a blind spot. You know who will never tell you that you cannot change the world? People who have changed the world. Also, people who are still striving to change the world. Take on the challenge, rise to your own potential, step up to meet your destiny, rather than waiting to find out if it might come true. Committing to the task of putting your story into the world, these are all audacious proposals. They are also simple imperatives. Challenges like these test your ability as an individual to overcome a lifetime of social indoctrination. The modern world has subjected all of us to a relentless campaign of mental training. Emotional programming techniques, including positive reinforcement, negative reinforcement, subliminal instruction, operant conditioning, and deliberate manipulation, all aimed at making complacent consumers of material goods and repetitive entertainment content. Try doing the dishes with no radio, no television, no distractions, or mowing the lawn, or going for a jog, or sorting the laundry. It may feel uncomfortable at first, but you'll discover that your daydreaming circuits fire back to life very quickly. You will recall the joy of utilizing these creative avenues of the mind as you did in childhood, and you will benefit from it, most certainly. Earlier, I made passing reference to the dark age in which we have been living, a time when the prevailing power structures, in order to maintain their power, must literally deny reality. They must claim that planet-altering carbon emissions do not affect the environment. They must pretend that petroleum, already well past peak production, can somehow serve as an infinitely available natural resource. They must make vast wealth inequality seem a natural and healthy circumstance, proof of a thriving economy. To convince a huge populace to go along with patently nonsensical notions, they have undermined public education, refuted the validity of science itself, removed every aspect of critical and creative thinking from the public curricula. Under the guise of accountability measures, multiple choice testing has become so prevalent that students emerge from the school perfectly programmed to choose from among the limited options offered, whatever they may be. Just as Copernicus and Galileo had to be discredited and destroyed by those who controlled the flow of information in a previous dark age, those who bring uncomfortable truths to light in a modern world are quickly ushered from the halls of power. I'm going to make you an offer on a new program we've put together at Active Voice Productions that provides everything you need to get started and keep going so that you can sit down and just write your book without inhibition, without undue anxiety, without internal resistance. I've been getting a couple of questions, and I'll answer those in a moment in the Q&A portion of this session. But first, I want to put this offer out to you, available only to the end of this webcast, this event. We'll call it an event. And I hope the information I provided has given you a significantly clearer sense of what you can accomplish and how, by filling the gaps in your knowledge, building your own practice, discovering your process, and adjusting your mindset, you can move forward to the completed book, the submission-ready manuscript you have dreamed of putting to the page. And as always, you have the freedom to choose. You can do the research yourself, stumble through a trial and error process, and maybe get a book done if you ever actually sit down to it. Or you can commit to turning that dream into a goal. Take advantage of this offer that I'll be putting forth and have a guaranteed path forward with the confidence, the support, and the toolkit that make it not only possible, but really a lot of fun to do. Now, Active Voice Productions has my new Just Write Your Own Book program listed at $1,797 with an initial launch sale bringing it down to $1,597. For those of you who have shown up today, for the duration of this event, while I am on your screen, I'm offering a significantly lower special pre-launch price. Remember, this special sale ends when this event ends, so I urge you to jump over to activevoiceproductions.com/just-write-your-own-book. It's on the screen right now. The moment you know this program fills your needs, and use the secret discount code WRITEON, WRITEON, at checkout to get your special price, plus a ton of bonuses. In addition to the Just Write Your Own Book program, we've packaged up a bonus bundle for you as an early adopter to make sure you have all the additional support and information you could possibly need. Firstly, when you sign up in this special program, you'll receive the complete Just Breathe set of breathing exercises. These are a powerful, guided, creative flow exercise package that were the very first product of mine that Active Voice released. The price tag on that program is $97, but it's yours absolutely free when you order the Just Write Your Own Book program. The Just Breathe system grew out of my work as a martial arts master and instructor, and those are specially designed to help break creative log jams, blocks, and slowdowns. In fact, uh, if there's time after the Q&A, this won't be in the recording, but I'll share one of those breathing exercises before we all log off. You'll also be given access to the Just Ask weekly Q&A for writers and performers in the Active Voice Productions sphere of influence, where you will have opportunities to ask me questions, interact with other friends, clients, and writers in our community. Ordinarily, this is available only with the general membership package at Active Voice. It's about $1,200, I think. All of that bundled together, the Just Write Your Own Book program, the Just Breathe series, and the Just Ask weekly Q&A would come to more than $3,000, but it's not all I'm giving you here. With the pre-release bundle, I'm also offering a 4-week audit of the Just Write Weekly Writers Workshop to let you do the drills, get all the training, and hear readings from the innermost circle of the Active Voice writers. And if you ever want additional support and personal attention, you'll be eligible to apply for one-on-one coaching sessions or packages, and you will have an advantage toward acceptance as a buyer of this package. You'll be entitled to valuable price breaks and all sorts of special offers over the years and forever. And you'll be part of the Active Voice community. By using this special code, Write On, you can pre-order the Just Write Your Own Book program today, receive all those bonuses for the low, low price of just $497. That's right. To thank you for joining me today, for watching this, for taking your career seriously as a writer, for feeling the impetus to be part of the movement from a dark age to a renaissance. It's funny, I've been saying for years that we live in a dark age, and if we can all spark our most creative, innovative selves, we can move into a renaissance rather than self-destructing. I had entirely forgotten that sometimes there needs to be a plague in between. So to thank you for helping to move the world from a dark age to the renaissance I desire, I am literally giving you more than $2,500 in savings. It's not an offer I'm going to make again. The program will be around. The price is going to go up. So if you want to get started on your book, finish your draft, be part of the supportive Active Voice Productions community, and step up to this challenge, it will never be more affordable. It will never be this affordable again. Because I want so badly to push humanity toward this tipping point, I'm going to go one better. I've insisted that we offer this program with an ironclad guarantee. If you utilize this program, do the exercises, follow the step-by-step instructions, and you do not have, at the very least, a rough draft within 1 year, I'll give you a full refund on your purchase price. I don't know how I can make it any easier for you to follow your dream and just write your book. We have a little bit of time remaining. As promised, I'm going to answer some questions, and feel free to populate the chat box. I'll see what more I can tell you. I'm going to leave the URL and the discount code up on the screen. Remember, that price is only good until I go offline with this training. I have 2 questions that have come up in the chat room. What is that called? The chat window. I'm going to answer those, and then I think we'll be done. So think seriously about going over to activevoiceproductions.com/just-write-your-book to get this price and this bonus package. Katie, I don't know who Katie is, but Katie is asking whether the program will work for nonfiction as well. I don't know if this is like a self-help book or a textbook or what, but yes, it will. We tend to forget that even history books and memoirs, textbooks, books that build on facts or pure memory or research, it's still a creative process. All the same obstacles show up. I don't care what kind of book you've been wanting to write. I only care that you get it written, Katie. So yes, yes, this is a program that will serve your purposes as well. It's a great question, and thank you for asking. Yes, 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 nonfiction too. Um, Stan, hi. Oh, I know this person. Stan, Stan, Stan wants to know if I can just write it for him, and yes, but it's really expensive. Um, you can go to activevoiceproductions.com/ghostwriting, I think, for information on that, and you can just hit me with a note about your project, and we'll discuss it. Although, hang on a second. Uh, yeah. Um, I won't even begin to start sketching out new projects until probably September of 2020 is the next time I'll be able to take on new clients for ghostwriting, I think. But yes, I do ghostwrite, unless your goal is just to have a book that you can sell to make money for yourself or to build up your status and your credibility in your field or something. Writing it yourself is always your best bet. It costs you less, but the main point is I'd be happy to take a large pile of your money and do it for you, but I would encourage you to spend way, way less and do it yourself. Okay? In fact, you know what? This might be stupid, but I don't think it really costs me anything. So here's what I'm going to do. If you buy this program, Stan, and you find out that it doesn't even get you started, come back to me within the year. Remind me that I said this. I'll knock the full program price off a ghostwriting contract. How's that work for you? It can sort of be a win-win. Which also, by the way, is the name of my imaginary panda. Although she spells it Nguyen, Nguyen, because my imaginary panda is Vietnamese on her father's side. Um, okay. I don't see any other questions coming up in the chat box. I'm just going to give you a 10-second countdown before I log this thing off to give you a chance to make your final purchases. For those of you who are here with me live today, stick around. After I stop this recording, we'll get on to the breathing exercise I promised you early.